In a quiet town tucked between green hills and red earth, where the smell of rain mixes with old stories, lived a young woman named Alma. To most, she was just another face in the crowd, but behind her calm eyes lived a storm she'd carried all her life. Alma's mother, Ma Joa, had been a healer. Some said she had a gift from God. Others whispered she worked with spirits. And when Ma Joa died, she left behind more than herbs and potions. She left behind a shadow. Sound of wooden boxes opening, old fabric rustling. Narrator, Vio. On a humid afternoon, after 3 long years of silence, Alma finally returned to her mother's small mud brick house. The air inside felt heavy, like the walls remembered every prayer, every tear, every secret ever whispered there. Dust danced in the sunlight that slipped through the cracked window. Alma began to pack her mother's things: old calabashes, bottles of herbs, faded notebooks with names written in strange symbols. Each item reminded her of the childhood she wanted to forget. Short pause. The tone turns heavier. Narrator, Vio. The town had never let her forget who she was, the witch's daughter. Children avoided her on the way to school. Women whispered when she passed by. Even now, years later, their words still echoed in her mind like ghosts. Alma shut one box and sighed deeply. She told herself, "This is the last of it. After this, I'll finally be free." But freedom, as she would soon learn, isn't always found in fire or distance. Sometimes it's buried in the ashes we refuse to touch. Sound of cloth unfolding. Subtle music shift, curious, tense. Narrator, Vio. At the bottom of her mother's chest, beneath old letters and broken beads, Alma found it. A dress. A hand-woven cloth of deep indigo and red, faded by time, but still strangely alive. Its patterns curved like flames and eyes, shapes she could never understand. For a moment, she just stared at it. Her breath caught in her throat. This was the dress her mother used during rituals, the one the villagers feared most. Whispering wind sound, faint heartbeat. Narrator, Vio. Memories rushed back. The nights she heard drums outside their hut. The mornings when people would come begging for healing. And the day the townspeople shouted and threw stones when Ma Joa tried to help a dying child. Alma clenched her fists. Tears filled her eyes, not of love, but of anger. "You brought this on us, Mama," she whispered under her breath. "Your dress, your powers, your name, they ruined me." Sound, footsteps to the yard, fire crackling. Narrator, Vio. Outside, the sun was setting behind the trees. The wind was low, and the sky burned orange. Alma stood by an old clay pot she used as a fire pit. Without another thought, she threw the dress inside. The fire caught fast, brighter than she expected. The fabric twisted and curled, releasing a thick, sweet smell. It wasn't smoke. It smelled like burning flowers and rain. Then the flames turned blue. Music deepens. Background sound, faint humming, almost like a woman's voice blending with the wind. Narrator, Vio. Alma stepped back, her heartbeat quickening. For a second, she thought she saw a shape, the faint outline of her mother's face in the rising smoke. The humming grew louder, or maybe it was only in her head. She rubbed her arms as goosebumps spread over her skin. The air grew cold, though the fire still burned. And then, as suddenly as it started, the flames died, leaving only gray ash that shimmered like tiny stars. Alma stared, frozen. A strange feeling washed over her, part relief, part regret. But before she turned away, the last flicker of the fire glowed blue again, like a single eye watching her. Long pause. The music fades to silence. Narrator, Vio. She didn't know it yet, but by burning her mother's dress, Alma had awakened something that never truly slept. Backslash. That night, the sky over Alma's town felt heavier than usual. Dark clouds covered the moon, and the air smelled like rain and smoke. Alma sat on her small wooden bed, staring at the wall, her mind refusing to rest. The fire outside had long died out, but the memory of the blue flame still burned in her thoughts. She told herself it was nothing, just the wind just the chemicals from the cloth. Still, something deep inside her felt wrong. Sound, distant thunder, floorboards creak softly. Narrator, Vio. The power went out just after midnight. The sudden darkness swallowed the room. Only the faint orange glow of her candle fought against the shadows. Amma sighed, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. But then she froze. Somewhere in the stillness, a soft humming drifted through the air. It was faint, almost tender, a tune she hadn't heard in years. Her mother's lullaby. The humming grows faintly in the background, eerie but gentle. Narrator, Vio. Amma's heart began to race. She looked around, whispering to herself, no, it can't be. But the sound was clear now, coming from outside, from near the place where she burned the dress. She stood up slowly, her bare feet brushing against the cold floor. The wind outside moaned through the cracks of the window, making the curtain dance like a ghost. She took one step toward the door, then stopped. The smell hit her first. That same scent, burning flowers and rain. Amma's eyes widened. She had buried the ashes behind the hut, far from the house. How could she still smell it? Sound. Rain starts softly, then wind rising, wood creaking. Narrator, Vio. She turned to close the window. And in that moment, she saw it. Her reflection in the glass. But it wasn't her. For just a second, only a breath of time, her mother's face looked back at her. The same calm eyes. The same gentle sadness. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. The window went dark. Amma stumbled backward, her candle flickering violently. Her breath came fast and shallow. Silence, except for rain. Narrator, Vio. She tried to speak, but her voice failed her. In her mind, she heard her own words from earlier that day. You ruined me, Mama. Now, they echoed like curses in the dark. Amma forced herself to sit down, clutching her shawl tight. Just my imagination, she whispered. It's just the storm. But the humming hadn't stopped. It was closer now. She covered her ears, trying to drown it out, but it seeped through her hands like water, soft, warm, endless. Then it faded. Silence. Amma exhaled shakily, closing her eyes. And somehow, exhaustion pulled her into sleep. Dream sequence ambience, muffled wind, distant drums, echoing heartbeat. Narrator, Vio. In her dreams, Amma stood in total darkness. The world around her was quiet, too quiet. Then, in the distance, she saw it. The dress, floating in the air like a ghost, glowing faintly blue, its patterns alive and shifting. It moved closer, the threads twisting like smoke, reaching toward her. Amma tried to run, but her feet felt heavy, trapped in the earth. She called out, "Leave me alone." But the dress only came nearer, and then wrapped gently around her shoulders, whispering softly in her mother's voice, "You burned me, but fire cannot end what was born in love." Sharp gasp, transitioned back to reality. Narrator, Vio. Amma woke with a scream. Her body was trembling, drenched in sweat. The rain outside had stopped, but the air was thick and still. Her eyes darted around the room. The candle had gone out. Only the dim gray light of early dawn crept through the window. She reached for her water jug, her hands shaking. But then she froze. Right there, beside her bed, neatly folded, untouched by dust or dampness, lay her mother's dress. Whole, unburned, waiting, silence. Then the faint sound of that lullaby returns, soft and chilling. Narrator, Vio. Amma's breath caught in her throat. The room grew colder, the air heavier. And for the first time since her mother's death, Amma whispered through trembling lips, "Mama, what do you want from me?" But no voice answered, only the sound of the wind and a faint rustle of fabric that seemed to move on its own. Music fades out slowly, tension unresolved. Narrator, Vio. The morning light crept through Amma's window like pale fingers touching the floor. Her eyes opened slowly, hoping the night before had been just a dream. But it wasn't. There it was, the old dress, folded neatly on the chair beside her bed. The same dress she had burned to ash with her own hands. Amma's chest tightened. For a moment, she couldn't move. Her breath came out shaky, her heart beating fast. She reached out a trembling hand, and touched the fabric. It was warm, as if it had been sitting under sunlight. But her room was cold. Sound, slow footsteps, creaking floor. Narrator, Vio Alma backed away, her mind spinning. No, she whispered, shaking her head. No, this can't be real. She rushed outside into the yard, bare feet on damp soil. The ashes she had buried behind the hut were still there, dark, scattered under the tree. Her throat went dry. If the ashes were here, then what was inside her house? Low suspense music begins, distant voices of villagers faintly audible. Narrator, Vio later that morning, Alma went to see her neighbor, Auntie Kofi, an older woman with sharp eyes and a softer heart. Auntie Kofi had known her mother well. She knocked on the wooden door, her voice shaking. Auntie, she said, did anyone come to my house last night? Anyone at all? Auntie Kofi studied her for a long moment, the wrinkles on her face deepening. Then she asked softly, what did you do yesterday, Alma? Alma hesitated. I burned one of my mother's things. Her old dress. The old woman's eyes darkened. Her hands, still strong despite age, clutched her wrapper tighter. Alma, she whispered, some things don't stay buried, child. You cannot destroy what was made with spirit and purpose. Not by fire. Alma frowned. I don't believe in those old stories, Andy. The dress came back because someone's playing tricks on me. That's all. Auntie Kofi didn't answer. She just looked at Alma with pity. Then she said quietly, you may not believe in spirits, but they still believe in you. Sound, door closing softly. Transition tone, the afternoon wind. Narrator, Vio Alma went home, her mind buzzing with denial. She refused to let fear control her. So she decided to end it, for good this time. She took the dress, wrapped it in a sack, and carried it down the narrow path that led to the river. The sky above was gray and heavy, the wind restless. When she reached the stream, she took out a knife and spread the dress across a flat stone. The pattern seemed to move faintly under the light, twisting like tiny flames. But Alma didn't stop. Sound, fabric tearing, knife slicing. Narrator, Vio, she cut it, once, twice again, until it was nothing but pieces of thread and cloth. Each slice felt like cutting through her own past. Then she threw the pieces into the running water. The river carried them away quickly, swirling them into the current. Alma stood there, breathing hard, watching the last piece disappear. A sense of relief washed over her. Cold, shallow, but real. For the first time in days, she smiled faintly. Now it's over, she whispered. Now I can breathe again. Soft rumble of thunder, growing wind. The tone shifts darker. Narrator, Vio, but then the wind changed. It blew hard, rushing down the stream, turning the calm water into small waves. Alma took a step back. Something about the ripples looked wrong. They didn't flow forward. They swirled, forming strange shapes. For a second, she saw the water bend, two small ripples curving together, like open hands reaching toward her. Then came the smell. That same sweet, burning scent, flowers and rain. Alma stumbled backward, her pulse racing. The pieces of the dress she had thrown in were rising. The wind lifted them from the water, spinning them through the air. They danced around her, twisting and floating until they touched her skin, damp, cold, and alive. Sound, heavy breathing, heartbeat thumping, faint whispering voices. Narrator, Vio Alma screamed, brushing at her arms, shaking the threads away. They fell to the ground, but instead of water, they left small traces of glowing ash. She ran home, breathless and terrified, her mind filled with her mother's voice, the memory of their last argument. Flashback ambience, echoes of raised voices, younger Alma shouting. Younger AMA, echoing, you brought shame on us. They hate me because of you. MAAD Joe, echoing, one day, you'll understand the fire that protects you, child. Flashback fades. Silence. Narrator, Vio, those were the last words her mother ever said to her. The next morning, Ma Joa was gone. Her body found beside her herbs and ashes, her face peaceful, as if she'd known her time had come. Alma blinked away tears, gripping the edge of her door. She whispered, "What fire, Mama? What did you mean?" But no one answered. Night ambience returns, crickets, soft wind, distant thunder again. Narrator, Vio that night, Amma could not sleep. The storm outside grew stronger. The wind howled through the trees like voices calling her name. She tried to ignore it, to stay still, eyes closed, pretending to rest. But just as she began to drift into uneasy sleep, her front door burst open with a violent crash. The wind roared through the house, slamming her cupboard, shaking the window frames. Amma jumped up, her heart pounding, and there, lying neatly on her bed once again, was the dress. Whole, dry, waiting, silence, then slow, rising music of dread and sorrow. Narrator, Vio Amma sank to the floor, tears filling her eyes. No fire could destroy it. No water could carry it away. And deep down, in the place between fear and grief, she finally began to wonder. Maybe the dress hadn't come back to haunt her. Maybe it had come back to teach her. Music fades slowly, leaving only the faint sound of the wind. The storm raged through the night, but nothing could silence the sound of Amma's heartbeat. She sat on the cold floor, staring at the dress lying neatly on her bed, calm and untouched, as if it had never been burned, never been drowned. The candle beside her flickered wildly, the flame bending toward the fabric like it, too, was being drawn to it. Amma couldn't breathe. Every inch of her skin felt the weight of the unseen, something watching her, something waiting. Sound, soft thunder roll, low hum like distant chanting. Narrator, Vio, she wanted to run, but her feet wouldn't move. Her body was frozen, not by fear alone, but by something deeper. A strange warmth crept through her chest, a pull she couldn't explain. Then, just for a heartbeat, she saw movement, a shadow passing behind the dress, faint, graceful, like the shape of a woman. Amma blinked hard. The shadow was gone. Her lips trembled. "Who are you?" she whispered into the dark. The only answer was the soft rustle of the fabric. Sound, faint wind, almost whispering her name, Amma. Narrator, Vio, she spun around. No one, only her empty room, trembling under the storm's breath. She forced herself to stand. Her hands shook as she reached for the dress once more. When her fingers touched the fabric, a shock of warmth rushed through her. Not pain, but memory. Flashes filled her mind. Her mother's laughter, the smell of herbs, the glow of firelight on the same dress, years ago. Then, a scream of fire, and her own angry voice shouting words she could no longer bear to remember. Amma stumbled backward, gasping for air. She had spent years trying to bury her past, but now the past was knocking back. Transition, soft humming, a lullaby, faint but recognizable. Narrator, Vio the sound made her freeze. A lullaby, her mother's lullaby. It came from nowhere or everywhere, filling the room, weaving through the walls like smoke. Amma pressed her hands to her ears, shaking her head. "No," she whispered. "Stop, please." But the song grew louder, soft, sorrowful, beautiful. And as the melody carried through the air, the candle flames steadied, burning straight and strong. Amma turned. The dress was moving. Sound, faint rustling cloth, low whoosh like breath. Narrator, Vio the sleeves lifted gently, like arms reaching out. The bottom hem swayed as though it floated on unseen wind. Amma's eyes filled with tears. Her fear melted into something else, recognition. The shape beneath the fabric began to form. A soft light bloomed from within the dress, outlining the figure of a woman. "Mother," Amma breathed, voice trembling. The light grew brighter, revealing the faint image of Ma Joa. Her eyes kind but heavy with sadness, her smile both gentle and stern. Her spirit was not angry, not vengeful, but aching. Soft emotional music fades in, strings and distant humming. Narrator, Vio Amma fell to her knees, unable to hold back her sobs. "I'm sorry," she whispered through tears. "I didn't understand. I was angry. I wanted to forget everything." Ma Joa's voice filled the air, not from her mouth, but from the world itself. It was the sound of wind and fire, of water and heart. My child, it said softly, you try to destroy what was meant to protect you. Alma lifted her head, confused and desperate. Protect me? From what? Her mother's spirit raised a hand, and the room around them began to shift. Sound, swirling wind, echoes, faint cries. Narrator, Vio. The walls faded away, replaced by memories painted in flame and smoke. Alma saw her village as it was years ago. Men and women gathered around her mother's hut, whispers of fear and accusation on their tongues. She's a witch, someone shouted. She brings sickness and hides behind charms. Alma remembered that day, how she stood apart, silent, angry at her mother's strange ways. She had believed the rumors then. She had turned away when her mother needed her most. The vision shifted again, Ma Ajoa kneeling by the river, washing the same dress in silence. Her tears fell into the water, glowing faintly as they touched the cloth. This dress, her spirit said, was woven with the prayer of fire. It carries protection, not power. It carries love, not curse. Soft chime, emotional tone deepens. Narrator, Vio. Alma's throat closed as understanding filled her heart. All these years, she had blamed her mother for the pain, when the truth was her mother had shielded her from it. That dress had saved her once, long ago, when she was a child, and a fever had nearly taken her life. Her mother had stayed by her side, wrapping that very cloth around her burning body until the fever broke. The memory hit her like a wave. She fell forward, weeping. I didn't know, Mama. I didn't know. Her mother's spirit knelt beside her, though her touch was only light and warmth. Forgiveness, Ma Ajoa whispered, is the only fire that can cleanse what anger burned. Sound, wind softening, thunder fading away. Narrator, Vio. The light began to fade. The figure of her mother grew faint, the outline shimmering like morning mist. But before vanishing, she placed a hand over Alma's heart. Wear it once more, the spirit said gently. And remember who you are. Alma reached out desperately. Don't go, Mama, please. But the spirit only smiled. Love never leaves, child. It only changes its shape. And with that, she was gone, leaving behind the soft glow of the dress and the scent of rain. Silence. Then a gentle sunrise ambience begins, birds, calm wind. Narrator, Vio. Morning came quietly. The storm was over. The air was clean, heavy with the smell of wet earth. Alma stood outside her home, the dress folded neatly in her arms. This time, she didn't see it as a curse. She saw it as a memory, a bridge between what was lost and what still lived within her. She pressed the cloth to her chest and whispered, "Thank you." And as the first rays of sunlight touched her face, the fabric shimmered softly, like firelight dancing beneath water. Music swells, emotional and hopeful tone. Narrator, Vio. The haunting had ended, but the healing had just begun. Alma finally understood. Her mother's fire had never died. It had simply waited for her to be ready to carry it again. Music fades to silence. The storm had passed, but inside Alma's heart, something new had begun to stir. Not the restless fire of anger, but the quiet warmth of understanding. She walked down the narrow path that led to the river, barefoot and calm. The world felt different now, lighter, softer. The same trees that once loomed like shadows now swayed gently in the breeze, whispering secrets she could almost understand. In her arms, she carried the dress, clean, whole, shining faintly with a warmth that was not of this world. Soft instrumental music, piano, and distant humming. Narrator, Vio. As Alma reached the riverbank, she stopped and closed her eyes. Memories rose and fell like waves. Her mother's voice, her laughter, the smell of herbs drying in the sun, the stories she used to tell by the fire. For years, Alma had run from those memories, afraid they made her weak. But now she saw them for what they were, her roots, her inheritance, her strength. She spread the dress across her lap and traced its patterns with her fingertips. The thread shimmered gold in the light, every stitch filled with care and intention. Sound, gentle water flow, distant villagers beginning their morning. Narrator, Vio the village was waking up. Children's laughter echoed faintly. Smoke rose from small cooking fires. And for the first time in years, Amma felt the courage to walk back home. Not as a frightened daughter, but as a woman ready to carry her mother's name with pride. Transition tone, light drumbeat, faint movement sound. Narrator, Vio, when she reached the center of the village, people turned to look. Their eyes were wide, not with fear this time, but with curiosity. Amma had been the girl who burned her mother's belongings, the one who turned her back on her past. Now she stood before them with calm eyes and a fire that seemed to shine from within. She lifted the dress for all to see. The morning sun caught it, and it glowed softly, gold warm alive. "This was my mother's," she said quietly, her voice steady. "And I understand now. She never cursed us. She protected us." Sound, murmurs of villagers, wind picking up gently. Narrator, Viosum looked away in shame. Others nodded slowly, their faces softening as old fear began to fade. Auntie Kofi stepped forward from the crowd, her eyes wet with tears. "You look just like her," she whispered. "Ma Joa will be proud today." Amma smiled faintly. "She's here, Auntie," in every flame that still burns. She turned toward the sacred tree near the edge of the market, the same tree under which her mother once taught the children healing songs. Beneath its shade, Amma laid the dress upon a flat stone. Sound, birds, faint rustle of cloth. Narrator, Vioshi knelt beside it, lit a small clay lamp, and whispered a prayer, not one of sorrow, but of gratitude. As the flame flickered, the gold in the fabric seemed to come alive again, reflecting the light like fire dancing across water. Then Amma did something no one expected. She put the dress on. The crowd gasped softly, but Amma stood tall. The cloth fit her perfectly, as if it had been waiting for her all along. The moment she slipped it over her shoulders, a warm glow surrounded her. The air itself seemed to hum, calm, strong, sacred. Music swells, gentle yet powerful orchestral. Narrator, Vio, it wasn't magic. It was peace. Amma finally understood. The fire her mother spoke of wasn't meant to burn the world. It was meant to light it. It was the fire of courage, forgiveness, and love, the kind that turns pain into purpose. As she stood there, her eyes met those of the children watching her, the next generation, wide-eyed and uncertain. She smiled at them and said, "Never be ashamed of where you come from. Our mother's spirits live in us, and they rise when we remember them." Soft applause from villagers, warm atmosphere builds. Narrator, Vio, the village that once whispered her mother's name in fear, now whispered it in reverence. And Amma, the daughter who had once tried to erase her past, became the keeper of her mother's legacy. From that day on, she began to heal others, just as Ma Joa once had. She learned the herbs, the chants, the quiet strength that came with listening, not to the wind but to the soul. The dress became her companion, a reminder that love endures, even through fire and time. Sound, night ambience slowly fades in, symbolizing time passing. Narrator, Vio, seasons changed. The river flowed and the fields bloomed again. Amma grew older, her heart lighter with each passing day. But every evening, she still lit a small candle by her window, one flame to honor the woman who gave her everything. Sometimes, when the wind was just right, the flame would flicker twice, once for her and once for the spirit that never truly left. Soft lullaby theme returns, her mother's song, peaceful this time. Narrator, Vio Amma would close her eyes and smile. The same lullaby that once haunted her now brought her peace. She understood now. The haunting had never been meant to punish her. It was a call to remember, a call to rise from guilt into grace. Sound, gentle fire crackling, symbolizing the eternal flame. Narrator, Vio, and so, under the stars of the quiet night, the legacy of Ma Ajoa lived on. Not in fear, not in mystery, but in the steady fire burning within her daughter's heart. The fire that heals, the fire that forgives, the fire that never dies. Music swells to a soft, hopeful crescendo, then fades into silence. And so life continued. Kofi balanced his modern ambitions with his cultural responsibilities, understanding that success was richer when rooted in identity and respect. He became a protector of family traditions, ensuring that the drum and its stories would never be forgotten. He taught patience, reverence, and connection to those who came after him, honoring the unseen threads that tied them all together. One night, as the village slept under a blanket of stars, the drum let out a soft, steady pulse. It was faint, almost like a whisper, but unmistakable, a final blessing, a quiet acknowledgement of harmony restored. Kofi listened, heart full, and smiled. In that simple rhythm, he felt the presence of ancestors, the pride of his father, and the unbroken continuity of his family story.